How is it that people who are targeted in gang stalking operations can never prove anything? The reason that targets are unable to prove anything is because everything in gang stalking is implied. I'm gonna show you and explain to you exactly how gang stalkers implied to me that they were following me. So I'm gonna tell you the names, I'm gonna tell you everything. This has to do with Liliana Juarez, who is the owner of Extraordinary Fruits. And I'm gonna start with her story or her involvement in gang stalking. So when I go to the gym, during this time, I always make sure to do 5 exercises, like religiously. And during this time, I was going to her home and training her. I was helping her with her fitness, like I have for about 7 years. One of those days, I went like that, and she just went. And then I turned back, and then I asked her, what did you do? And she completely went, what are you talking about? Like, she denied what she had just done. So I'm telling you this because this is evidence of her participation in gang stalking. She was literally gaslighting me into doubting what I literally saw with my own eyes. Then Liliana Juarez, in another occasion, I had just gone to the gym and then I went to train her. And then with a gang stalking grin, the grin that all gang stalkers do to tell you that they're fucking you, said with no context, 5 ejercicios, 5 exercises. So I knew that she was gang stalking me, not because she had also done other acts that perpetuated the gang stalking narrative, but the implication of we're watching you was done by those words. I always do 5 exercises and there was no context for her to tell it to me. There was no conversation. She literally just spread it out 5 ejercicios. And then she looked at me and then she did a gang stalking grin. So that in itself implies we are watching you. That's one. So Liliana Juarez, if you ever happen to watch this, I hope you go fuck yourself. I know your tits are fake, your nose still crooked, and I hate both of your faces. FYI. And I know that the business that you have, you stole it from your sister. Anyways, your sister is amazing though. But you're the most awful person I have ever met. Next. Wait. And believe it or not, Liliana, I still wish the best for you. I still do. Because I'm not like you. And I will never be you. You disgust me. You really do. Now, you didn't used to disgust me. You just got so fucking full of yourself. Just know that you're gonna end up alone. Because no one's gonna want a woman like you. You have way too many faces. Now, okay, that was done. I wanted to get it out of my chest for the longest. Anyways, so that was one implication. So the fact that I always did 5 exercises and following that up with an unnecessary bout of words that described what I had just done, which was 5 exercises, the implication of we are following you is placed. Another one. When I was walking to the gym, literally some cunt was like, people like you need to always be watched. That's the second time. So that's that. So someone actually told me that people like you have to always be watched. Another instance, 2 different gang stalkers. So also, because I was at the gym every day, people saw that I brushed my teeth every day in the morning. And they're so white because I brushed them for like 10 minutes. And I floss. I take like a good 15, 20 minutes taking care of my teeth. That's never changed. So gang stalkers are going to imply that they're watching you by calling out things that you do, but they are the ones going to be saying that they're doing it. For example, my ex-boss, Brittany Rivero, came to me and she started the conversation and she literally said, so I just had like brush my teeth for like 10 minutes, like every day. And she said, I just brushed them really good, like for fucking 10. And she repeated that like 10 minutes, like 2 or 3 times. And let me tell you, her teeth do not look like she brushes for 10 minutes. I don't mean to be an asshole, but they don't. Mine do, you know, mine fucking do. And I know what good teeth that are brushed 10 minutes a fucking day look like. So that is another one. Like if you put these cases separate by themselves, they don't mean anything. But once you put all these different instances together and all of them are happening to the same person in a very close amount of time, the perception of we're watching you is imposed on the target. Another one that happened was that I actually don't have a turn signal lever on my car. So I didn't use turn signal. And 2 different people told me the same thing. Anthony Gas told me this. Have you noticed that people who drive BMWs are awful at using their turn signals with a gang stalking ring? So he said that, and he also added another vehicle, another brand, a Volkswagen, I think. And then before that, someone else told me the same thing. But Anthony Gass said like BMWs, like he emphasized the BMW, and I drive a BMW. The craziest one though that still trips me to this day is the one where you're thinking to yourself out loud. Well, at least you believe that you're by yourself, but someone is listening. And next thing you know, someone around you, when you're not looking, is gonna yell a word that you had just said. So for example, I did this to test this. So I repeated, not quite, not quite, not quite, not quite, not quite, a lot. 2 days later, Pedro Rivero, not quite, not quite, not quite, not quite, not quite. Then again, I was like, okay, let me try this again. Then I said, papacito, 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 papacito. And then, I don't remember his name. He was the overweight coworker with glasses that likes video games a lot. He yelled, papacito, when I wasn't looking. First of all, I recognize the voices. Like, come on. So that in itself confirms to me that because I was living in my car, there was someone around me listening at it during those instances. During gang stalking, repeating a word or a phrase kept my mind thinking of something else instead of gang stalking. That's how I learned how to control my mind. So I found myself repeating phrases that I liked or phrases that invoked a good sensation. Like not quite is the phrase that Bayonetta says when you push forward, when you get an attack, and then she comes out with like the shield and she says, not quite. And then papacito, that's because I was trying to lift my own spirits during gang stalking. And I was saying aloud, papacito, papacito, papacito. So exactly that way is how gang stalkers imply to you. We are watching what you're doing. We can hear what you say. We're watching you because we know what you do at the gym. We know how long you spend brushing your teeth. All of these events happened very close to each other until gang stalkers see that you know that you are getting followed. Until gang stalkers know that they hear what you say, that they're spying on you. In gang stalking, everyone says that when you are not looking at their face most of the time. Because that way, you don't know if you heard that voice or if you imagined it. These instances that I'm explaining to you in gang stalking are because I know that I didn't imagine it, because I recognize the voices. The voices that I heard in my head were very different than the voices from these people. I've seen these people with my own eyes. I heard them with my own ear. I know very well how to differentiate between sounds that are produced by other people and sounds that are being produced by my own mind. And when you get gang stalked though, in my case, when I was at the gym, people all over the gym were literally talking shit about me, facing a direction where I couldn't see their mouths. And this happened so much, and your mind gets so tired that when that happens, you start actually hearing voices. And yes, there will be points where you are confused if the voices are out of you or they are created from your mind. Yes, I was confused a lot of times with voices, but the instances where I'm telling you that I heard these people is because I recognize their voices. And the voices of these people are incredibly different from the voices in my head. So this is how gang stalkers tell you, we're watching you, we're listening to you, we know what you do. I just remember another instance. When I was staying at the shelter, a woman literally told me, you should eat more vegetables. And she was right. So this happened. Oh shit, that's right. So let me tell you more. When I was at the shelter, I felt something on my foot and it hurt. So I lifted my foot and I went, and I threw my sandal. And then a couple of days later, a gang stalker, a fucking staff from Father Joe's village in San Diego, literally told me, look at me. And then she went, my foot. And then she threw the sandal, mimicking what I was doing. Also, the mimicking of things that you were doing is also a way that gang stalkers tell you, we're watching you, without actually telling you that they're watching you. Everything in gang stalking is implied. And this bombardment of insinuations has a very interesting psychological effect. The bitch said that and laughed. And I literally just kept on walking and I never said anything. So these occurrences have a very particular effect on your mind. So, because for so many times, whenever I said, oh wow, and then all gang stalkers began saying that same thing in order for me to make the assumption that they were watching has the effect of when you hear someone else use a word that is common to you, that you use, your mind makes the assumption that that person is a gangstalker simply because that person said a word that you say a lot. This is my second time recording the video because what I am about to explain to you is really complicated because it has to do with the imagination. So I'm going to try to be as clear as possible. If anything is confusing or you don't understand what I'm trying to explain to you, please send me a message on the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. I really appreciate it. Just know that the purpose of this channel is to make publicly available how gang stalking actually works. How it is that people know that they are getting followed but never have any evidence. At least any believable evidence or anything that can stand up in court. So making the assumption, so the fact that people imply to me that I am being listened to when I say a word a lot and gang stalkers say it to imply that to me does the following to your mind. Your imagination keeps perpetuating the gang stalking narrative. So now that I have been out of gang stalking 13 weeks, I repeated a phrase that I said a lot and someone else messaged me with this phrase. So because in gang stalking, my assumption that someone was listening to me and selected a word or a phrase that I was saying and had someone else tell me this word without any context, imagining the person or imagining a person listening to you and then communicating to someone else, and telling someone else to tell you that phrase with no context has your imagination visualizing someone actually listening to you and then this person texting someone else and then having that someone else tell you that. That was true so many times that imagining people doing that, like communicating amongst themselves only to tell you that they're listening to you indirectly, creates a habit of imagining those things. So your mind automatically begins assuming and imagining what you didn't see, which was the person listening to you, and then the person texting someone else, and then that someone else telling you that phrase. I hope I'm being really clear. So, because that cycle happens so many times, whenever someone texts you or tells you, or even when you hear a word that you say a lot or a phrase that you say a lot, your imagination is gonna automatically create the images of someone listening to you. And then that person that was listening have someone else say that word out loud where you can hear it to imply to you that you are being listened to. So the assumptions become automatic. I was gang stalked for 7 years and I got to understand my mind and how my imagination was making the gang stalking narrative a reality, that I have full clarity on what my mind does in order to perpetuate the gang stalking narrative. So practically all the harassment, all the events where people were telling me things that I was doing, things that I was saying, makes your mind automatically make that assumption whenever an event happens, such as someone that you don't know saying a word that you use a lot. So what the insinuations do is that they condition you to make those assumptions. So when you are out in the real world and someone says a word that you use, you are gonna believe that that person is a gang stalker. Also, because gang stalkers, give me a second. I'm gonna use a funny example. So, because gang stalkers knew that I was brushing my teeth, because I was brushing my teeth a lot, right? Like 10 minutes. And then someone told me, Bernice Rivero, she was like, I'm brushing my teeth 10 minutes, Taking all of those events into consideration, let's say that I have an itchy pussy. and one day I scratch my pussy a lot. So if I hear someone randomly saying, I have an itch, I'm gonna assume someone is watching me scratch my pussy. So that is what that does, is that if you do something a lot and people tell you this indirectly or around you, that one thing that you did a lot of times, you're getting conditioned to assume that people are talking about you. Like, again, if I have an itchy pussy and I'm always scratching it, Like all of a sudden, like I just have a really itchy pussy. And then someone around me says, oh, my head itches. You know, I'm gonna assume that they were talking about me scratching my pussy. Anyways, subscribe. And that's exactly to the T how Gangstalkers make targets believe that they are getting followed, that they are getting listened to, and that they are getting observed. The truth is that someone actually is watching you, someone actually is observing you, and someone is actually listening to you. But it is not as often as you think. So don't believe that you have microphones installed in your house. Don't believe that your car is bugged. Don't believe any of that shit. Because if you do, once you start hearing voices, once you start hearing V2K, the voices are gonna tell you what you believe and what you read. And most of the reading material of gang stalking that is online follows the narrative of direct energy weapons, of high tech. But the reality is that there is nothing like that. It is all a fucking game played by a bunch of psychopaths. Okay? And yes, Bernice Rivero is a fucking psychopath. Anthony Gas is a fucking psychopath. Liliana Juarez is a fucking psychopath. Those people are people who actively harass me during my gang stalking operation. Okay, that's all I have to say for today. Bye.